Welcome everyone to a Torah study. This week we studied a portion of Tazria and Metzora. It's a combination of two portions, and in these Torah portions, God is teaching us many laws regarding circumcision, the birth of a child, as well um, as the law of Tarat, leprosy. And we will try and delve into certain aspects of leprosy today. But first, I want to talk for a moment about giving birth. So we begin in the start of the portion, chapter page. If you have the same book as we use in synagogue, the Gutnik Chumash, you may find it right at the beginning. It starts at the bottom of page 699, or chapter 12, verses 6 and 7. We read about a woman giving birth. The Torah says, when the days of the purification for a son or a daughter is complete, she should bring a male lamb in its first year as a burnt offering, and a young dove or a turtle dove as a sin offering. To the priest in the entrance of the tent of meeting, he should offer it up before God and atone for her, and she will be totally purified from being called impure due to the source of her blood. So the Torah tells us that when a lady gives birth at the conclusion of certain number of days, either 40 days for a boy or 30 days for a boy, or 2 weeks, 1 week for a boy, 2 weeks for a girl, she must wait another 60 days, or another 33 days for a boy, or 66 days for a girl. Let me repeat it because it was confusing. When a mom gives birth to a child, if the child is a boy, for 7 days she is not allowed to be with her husband, and for 33 days from the moment she gave birth she may not enter the holy temple. If she gave birth to a girl, for 2 weeks she may not be with her husband, and for 66 days she may not enter into the holy temple. And then there is a process of purification for a husband she's allowed to be with. If she goes to mikvah or to enter the temple, she must bring sacrifices. One of the sacrifices are a sin offering. And our sages are asking, what type of sin did she commit that she deserve atonement? After all, giving birth is one of the greatest ways of serving God, and so much so that the mother is endangering her life for the sake of giving birth to a child. And yet the Torah tells us that she must bring a sin offering after she gave birth. So here are the three common answers that are given. I'm not going to delve into them. Just very briefly, the Talmud tells us that when a mother is giving birth, she's undergoing so much pain and suffering that she swears never to be with her husband again, so she won't get pregnant. And because this vow is not going to be kept, we know that after a while, as soon as she holds the baby, she forgets about all the pain and suffering, and she loves the baby, and now she's eager to have another child. She's going to break her vow. And for that, there is a need for sin. There is a need for a sin, an atonement for this, for her breaking her vow not to be with her husband. This is the opinion, or this is one opinion. The second is this is the Talmud, by the way. The Chinuch, the Talmud, the book of Chinuch, Sefer HaChinuch, says that this is not actually a sin offering, it is a thankful offering to thank God for the miracle of having a child. When she's giving birth, she experienced a great miracle, and therefore she thanks God by bringing a sacrifice. The Bechaye, Sefer HaBechaye, writes that actually she brings a sin offering, but it's not about a sin she committed, but a sin that Eve, the mother of all mothers, have committed. And the Rebbe points out that Rashi didn't bother explaining the reason of the sin offering because it's obvious to the student who had studied the book of Bereshit, of Genesis, that when Eve ate from the tree of knowledge and gave her husband to enjoy, we read in the Torah that part of the punishment is that she will go through pain of labor and delivery, of giving birth. This is one of the 10 curses that God had cursed Eve, and therefore giving birth is directly associated with or the complications and difficulties is directly associated with Eve's behavior. And as the Bechaye concludes, that when the roots of a tree are damaged, it impacts every branch of the tree. And therefore, when Eve misbehaved, the impact affects all her future generations, and therefore, when a mother is giving birth today, she needs to bring a sin offering to atone not for something she had done inappropriately, but rather it is for what Eve, the first mother, had done by eating from the tree of knowledge. So this is at the beginning of this week's portion. The reason I share that with you is because I want to go in a little deeper into a another aspect of the study of this week's portion. So I'm going to talk about Tarat. Tarat is a form of this. What is Tarat? Let's start. According to Maimonides, Tarat, you can read the laws of Tarat beginning on page of 703 or chapter 13 beginning in verse number 4. So what is Tarat? Tarat is, according to Maimonides, a general name for anything that is changed in leather, in the skin of a human, in the place of the hair where some of the hair has got lost, or in the garments, and finally at homes in the walls of the house. So it's actually a very inclusive, all inclusive name that covers many aspects. So in the skin of a human, the color will change, a little spot will change into white. There are 4 levels of white which are considered tzaraat. In the place where hair grows, let's say in the head or for a man during the place of the beard, it's not about the skin, it's about the hair. If there is a bald spot in the middle and it's in a certain amount, that makes it tzaraat. Talking about walls, if the wall of the house got these spots of different color, those colors must be green. If it was brown, black, yellow, white, it is of no consequence. In the garments or in leather utensils, different utensils that they used to make out of animal hide, it will be again very similar to the garments, which are green, different levels of green, light green, green, dark green, but other colors don't matter. So when we talk about tzaraat, it's not necessarily leprosy, it's not pimples, it's not pus, it is a discoloration of the skin or the loss of hair in a place where hair grows, or a color that's particular in the walls of a house or the garments. Is tzaraat a natural phenomena or not a natural phenomena? Maimonides makes it clear that this is not a natural phenomena. It doesn't happen naturally under conditions, let's say under extreme heat or cold or damp place. It is totally miraculous. It is something that God would bring upon the Jewish people in particular, for in no way to explain. Science cannot find a reason for it. because it is totally a miracle. What causes Tarat? What brings Tarat upon a human being? So here we are going to get into gossiping. Maimonides, who brings the Jewish law regarding Tarat, Maimonides writes that there is a process by which God is sending messages to a human. Maimonides writes that when a man is speaking lashon hara, gossiping, and he is causing a hurt to someone else, God will remind the person that he is not speaking properly by making the walls of his house change color. When the walls of the house change color, it should serve him a reminder to be careful what he says and how he speaks. Assuming that if he took note and have changed, the colors will change back to normal after a week, as the Torah describes and elaborates in details. What if he did not, and he continues on with this type of behavior? Then the spot will spread around the wall in that area, and the Kohen, the priest, will close the house for another week, wait for any changes. If, in other words, we're giving a person the opportunity to come clean, to correct himself and make himself stop behaving inappropriately. After the 2 weeks, if he did not take note and stop speaking bad, then the color will spread, and the law is that they must destroy the entire house, and the bricks cannot be reused those days. Bricks or stones were extremely expensive, so they would not throw away the material, but you reuse it. And in this case, it's a total loss because they have to throw them into the middle of the ocean, so no one should ever use them. This is the process that it starts. Then it continues. What if the man does not take note and he does not repent? Then God will make that the utensils in his house are becoming impure, and he suddenly sees the utensils, the leather utensils, are changing colors, and again he's given 1 week, then a second week, so to say 2 weeks notice. And if he did not change, they will have to be burned. And if that doesn't help, then his garments are going through the process. And his garments, after 2 weeks, the spot appears on the garment. Given a 1 week for him to change, didn't change. Then we cannot use the garments for another week. And then if after 2 weeks, nothing, it did not change, God will affect them by forcing to destroy the garments. If that didn't help, then this leprosy or the tzarat will appear on the skin of a human, and he's given 1 week to rethink, reconsider the way he speaks. If that didn't help, then after that, 1 more week warning, and after the second week, the warning, if it helped, the color would go away. If it didn't go away, if it did not change, the color would spread, and then we have to call this man Metzora. It's a very negative word, very negative way to describe someone. He must leave the community, and he must go and sit separately by himself. Even if there are other people who are afflicted with the same ailment, they're not allowed to sit together. Each one have to be separated by themselves outside the camp, so they have time to contemplate what they have done wrong and find the reason for that type of punishment. And hopefully they will repent, because if they don't repent, they will never change, will never come back. This is Maimonides' explanation of what Tarat is. As I said, it includes walls, garments, leather utensils, and skin of a human. And the purpose of the Tarat, according to Maimonides, it's all miraculous, and it is a warning about the way you use our speech. The power of speech is a gift God gave us, and He wants to make sure we utilize it properly. When we speak lashon hara, when we speak when we gossip or speak slander about somebody else, God will start with warning, and slowly but surely, if we don't change, then it will come to a point that we will have to leave the community, because God do not want us to associate with anybody so we don't hurt anybody in the process. Why there is no Tarat today? Today you won't find with anyone, there is no exception to the rule. Tarat does not exist anymore. There are two reasons, two explanations, and they are very interconnected. The first is the Alshich. Alshich was a very famous rabbi. I believe that he's the one who put together the Lechad Dodi, Rabbi Shlomo al-Kabatz. Maybe he was his colleague, but it was the same time a Kabbalist from the town of Tzfat. The Alshich said that the Tzarat, this type of relationship between us and God, where God is going to warn us and make us stay away from speaking bad and causing sin, was only when we were very holy, in a very high state of standing, when we were much closer to God. And because we are very close to God, God will give us warning anytime we get off and we do not go very far away from God. But today, we are not in such a high standing, we're not that close to God, and therefore God will not bother to remind us every time we go astray. He says that that's why when the beginning of the law of Tzarat starts, it starts with verse 2 on page 700 or 701 in English, verse 2, chapter 13. It says, Adam ki yeh, a man that might have a skin discoloration. Adam is the highest form of a human. If you look throughout our sages, human being, the human species, has four names: Adam, Ish, Gever, Enosh. There are four ways to describe a human. Adam, the first man, is the highest form of a human being. Anytime you want to describe a king or someone who has achieved greatly, you use the term Adam. Enosh is a person of the lowest level that's possible. Asked Al Sheikh, if the tzarat is coming upon someone for committing a sin, how come the Torah describe him as Adam? Why doesn't it say Ish or Gever ki? Why does the word Adam appears? And he says because that man is actually a very holy man. Only holy people who are close to God will be afflicted and receive a sign from God to remind them about their speech and make sure that they speak properly. The Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitch Rebbe in Lekutei Torah, explains very similar. The Rebbe says that Tarat, as we just discovered, is a miracle. It's no way naturally to be explained. And therefore, the way that happens is that when a person does not use speech properly, his body, who is so refined and holy, will reject him and will change by adding some colors to this specific colors. It only applied to someone who is very holy. Says the Lekutei Torah, a man who has a lot more to correct and fix, there is no place for his body to change whenever he speaks gossip. Only someone who had covered everything else and has done right by all. He keeps Shabbat and he keeps kosher and he studies enough Torah and he prays and he's respectful to his spouse and he's educating his kids. Then when a person like that, his body is very refined and very holy because it's a vessel to serve God. When the person starts speaking ill of somebody else, then the body says, hey, it's not right. Stop doing it. And the body will change to remind the person not to do it. However, says the Alter Rebbe, in our day and age, we have so many greater sins to care for and so much more repair that is needed. Therefore, the body is, so to say, mute, and the body is not reacting to a misbehaving like gossip the way it should have. That's the Alter Rebbe. All that I shared with you is an introduction to a point, and I hope I did not lose you, but this is what the Torah is teaching us, and I think it's important, and I'm trying to teach it in the easiest way possible. The Rebbe, the Lubavitch Rebbe, is asking a simple question. The Rebbe says that when we study laws of gossip in Maimonides is very harsh when it comes to gossiping. Maimonides tells us that gossip, someone who is gossiping about somebody else, is driving godliness away from the universe. And a person who is used to speaking gossip in his home, there is no God in his home. And a person who walks around and walks to synagogue and start gossiping, he drives God away from the synagogue. That's the way Maimonides described. The Rebbe points out that there is no other sin where Maimonides said that the sinner is driving God away. The only one describing driving God away through the sin is gossiping. Ask the Rebbe, I don't understand. When Maimonides teaches Tarat, he says that God is sending him different signs and reminders and a second chance, as I just shared with you in details. At first, it goes on the walls of the house and he's given a week to change. If a week go by, they didn't change, he's given a second week. If a second week went by and he changed, everything is fixed. If not, they destroy the house. But it's not the end. God is still around with them. Now God is going to bring it upon his garments. And again, he's going to give him a first week and then a second week. It didn't help. Then God is going to come to his skin and cause him to the skin to have the tarat. And then the second 2 weeks go by and it didn't change. Now we're going to kick him out and say to him, don't talk to anybody because you're destroying humanity. But according to Maimonides, as the Rebbe, the first time a man speaks ill, he drives God away. How is it possible if he could drive God away that God keeps coming back with different chances and different signs, first on the walls, then on the garments, and only then on the skin? How come God is giving him so many chances? It seems that it's a totally different sin than the sin of gossiping. In addition, the second question that's obvious, if Tarat appears only to a very holy man, as we all just shared, two rabbis who makes it clear that it only befalls upon holy people whose body is so refined that it rejects that sin. Or according to the Alshich, only when you are very close to God, God bothered to make those signs. We're dealing with gossiping. Gossiping is not something that a righteous man is busy doing. If he's called a righteous and holy person, how is it possible that he speaks and he's gossiping? So the Rebbe explains the following. The Rebbe says that the Maimonides actually is speaking of the power of speech, but there are two major categories when we deal with negative speech. And I've been asked countless times, people get confused, and this time today, with the very few minutes remaining, I want to delve in and explain it in details. Says the Rebbe, there is somebody who speak negatively about somebody else, and he is causing an abuse of another person. This guy is a thief. I cannot trust him. This guy will cheat you. He will sell you something else. He's promising you the world. This is using the power of speech, but the abuse is about someone else. Now, in this way, he had committed two crimes. Number one, he abuses speech. Number two, he causes an immediate damage to that person. That person is not going to do business anymore. That person is not going to have friends anymore. That person is not going to have opportunities as much as he used to. This is called Lashon Hara, abuse of another person. Then you have another type of abuse of speech, and that is, the Rebbe calls it a very subtle abuse. We will categorize it anything a person speaks that has no good purpose. Anytime I talk and there is no need or benefit from that speech, gets into that category. Now, we have two problems with this type of speech. Number one, there is no abuse of another person because I do not speak bad about a person directly. It's indirect. So I have here an abuse of the power of speech. The speech is one of the greatest gifts that God gave us. Those of us who want to know the details, you're invited to the next Shayla. We're going to talk a little bit in lesson 3. We're going to talk about the beautiful power of speech, how it enabled us to have this pencil. This pencil involved millions of people's working on and putting it together. If you don't believe me, you can Google on YouTube how this pencil is made, and they will show you how many, literally millions of people are working so we can enjoy from this simple, seemingly very, very dumb object. So when I speak or when I use the power of speech, which is the greatest gift God gave us, and I do not use it for a positive, to bring a blessing upon myself or somebody else, to study Torah, to bring God into the universe, the abuse of speech is happening. But in addition, there is a subtle negativity that will take time to play out. It's not going to have an impact now, but it will have an impact later on. Says the Rebbe Rambam when he talks about in the law of gossiping, about driving God away from his life, he's talking about the first category of someone who is speaking negative about somebody else. This guy is a liar, this guy is a cheater, I don't trust him, he sold me the wrong item, he didn't deliver on time. Anytime we speak gossiping, that's the gossip he's talking about. And obviously God is going to go away from that person and not rest in his in his place. Then there is another type of gossiping, utilizing the power of speech for no purpose, wasting it. Then now Tarat, the whole process by which God is coming to the person, warning him, sending him a sign, giving him a week, giving him a second week, then sending him another sign. It starts with the walls. 2 weeks later, then it will move on to his garments. 2 weeks later, it will move into his skin. This is when someone is not directly hurting someone in a direct way today, but by using idle talk, by utilizing the power of speech for no benefit, it will cause the hurt of someone, and it definitely is the abuse of the power of speech. This, obviously, we're talking about very holy people whose every other aspect of their life is perfect. And then we can say, when this person is actually misusing the speech, God will come and right away try to stop him. That's why Al-Shich and the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah say that the type of people who receive Tarat are very holy people when they are close to God, or when their body is very refined, that it rejects immediately. Because we're talking about very holy people. Today, people are not like that, and therefore the body will not react. And to me, this is a very powerful point, how powerful the power of speech is. Not just when we hurt someone, causing someone else to get hurt is inappropriate, but any time we use our mouth, we should ask ourselves, what's the purpose? If it is for no purpose, it is inappropriate. And by doing so, as King Solomon says, if you guard your tongue, you save yourself from lots of trouble, because no one will blame you for anything you didn't say. So I'd like to conclude by wishing you Shabbat Shalom and reminding you that tomorrow evening at 7:30 we will have services, and on Saturday morning 9:30 a.m. we'll study, and 10 o'clock we'll have again services. Everybody.
Shabbat
Thank you,
shalom.
Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom.